All right, so what we're going to do to put a bow on this for now is we're going to have the individual group leaders come up and share with us kind of the highlights of their conversations. Again, we're documenting all of their notes as well as their highlights that they'll present. So each of the six will come up, give you a brief overview, and then we'll put a bow on things so we can send you on your way. So first up from group one, Michael, please join us.
Hi, Group 1 had policy, and just to make it nice and neat, policy encompasses every group, without a doubt. Without policy, everything else can't be affected. So we've come up with a few things, and Lauren's going to read them out.
Yes.
She remembers where she put them.
I know, I do. They're right there. So, I can't see this. There we go. Thank you. So I should just give you a note. We numbered them, so I'm going to give you the recommendation it's based off of first, and then we'll walk through the rest of it. So number 1 is maintain the visual and performing arts as a core subject. Ensure every child participates. And so for our group, there was really a strong look at, from a policy perspective, so we have a law that says you have to have all of these disciplines that you expose children to, but there's no enforcement. So what's the enforcement of existing policies? And there was even a suggestion around thinking about this specifically in the early grades. So how do you mandate a culture of arts education from pre-K so that it's not this other thing? So when kids get to the 3rd grade and they're doing math instead of arts, parents go, oh wait, why isn't he doing that anymore? And sort of making it a part of the fabric.
Yeah, the example that was used in our room was if you didn't have math being taken for a specific grade, what would the consequence be? So if dance or theater isn't happening at a specific grade level, what's the consequence? And right now, we don't know of any consequence.
The second was require schools to publicly report on an annual basis information regarding access, student participation, the number of certified teachers, and quality based on the SS State plan. And so we talked about, one of the things that came up was clarity in reporting that data. So training and certification to help more accurate completion, and even some reviews about statute compliance, because that even came up in the room where people think something counts as access to a particular discipline, or what the rules are about what kind of qualifications your staff has to have for that activity to count. And so that came up as well too. The third was around the New Jersey State Board of Education reinstating a board level liaison for arts education. We just left that because that kind of spoke for itself.
I don't know why
Reinstate
it's not there anymore.
Yeah. So there it is. And then the fourth one was, if I can get my phone, yeah, there we go. The fourth one was around, let's see. Oh, letting the arts speak for itself. So advocacy that doesn't unite the arts with other things. So like we know what happens. We have the narrative for school reading, right? Like if you don't read by the 3rd grade, we know what happens to Johnny if he can't read by the 3rd grade. But we haven't talked about what happens to Johnny when he hasn't had an arts education before the 3rd grade. And so how do we construct a narrative that's outside of and not in service to other things? And so the recommendations they made in terms of what role the Arts Ed Now campaign could play was the data dashboard is amazing and great. And so how do we build into the other part of that, the other side of that, around the clarity of reporting data, and how can Arts Ed Now help facilitate that for school administrators?
The part about the reporting piece, the way the website reads now, it's nice and clear. So you don't have to have an arts education background to
or data background
to understand what's being said. In many cases, you don't have administrators that have an arts background, so they're being sent tasks to try to decipher information. It's a lot clearer now. It makes much more sense.
In terms of what did we say? In terms of both enforcement of existing policies and reinstating the BOE, their relationship with both the State Board of Education and NJDOE are great opportunities for this as well too. And last but certainly not least, on the advocacy front, the group felt like there was an opportunity because of Arts Ed Now of things that aren't currently captured in terms of like that utility that's not in service of others. So we thought that that could be another like phase of the great project that's come out of the Arts Ed Now campaign.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Group 2, our fearless leader was Margaret L. and her exceptional scribe, Allison Tratner. No, you're fine.
Hi, everyone. So our focus area was around students. And when we looked at the recommendations, there were 4 that sort of rose to the top. And actually, the second one actually came up to the very top, and it was around school administrators, ensuring that students have access to all 4 arts disciplines as required by the code. And basically, we related this back to policy and talked about emphasizing the accountability at the state level, the county level, and the city level in terms of holding administrators accountable to ensure that this happens, and to also look at a timeline for compliance for these, and that if no compliance, like for example, if a school can't meet the need, then perhaps they request a waiver that they cannot provide this particular service, and then do some sort of intervention going forward so that they have a plan to be inclusive of all 4 art forms. How Arts Ed Now could help address this problem. Basically, we thought, I mean, we had many ideas, but some highlights is to certainly continue the communication campaign to reach people where they are. Think about where people are that are impacted by this, and continue that campaign and target it more clearly to meet people at every single level of the spectrum. And then what can we do at the school level or within our own organizations is empower students to be advocates also to drive this mission. We also looked at recommendations, the recommendation that the state, that the NJDOE and Arts Ed Now, the following goals for arts education, the goals to meet by 2020. There were 4 of them that were listed there. And we thought very clearly that PD for counselors, which also linked to the 7th recommendation. But in addition to counselors, we thought it was really important to do PD for administrators, and especially those scheduling administrators around the arts, because even though counselors are responsible for how we schedule, especially at the high school level, that work is guided by people who are telling them what to do. So those are the people who actually require professional development. And then what can the state do to, and even, you know, a facility like the Principal Center, what do they do to actually educate those administrators around those practices as it regards to scheduling? And then also looking at staffing practices and lobby for the mandate of adequate seat time and facilities. So that's something that we felt was not very clear laid out in terms of policy. We don't, you know, we even suggested the idea of doing like minimum seat time. What is the actual minimum seat time at each spectrum, at each grade level, K through 5, 6 to 8, and then high school as well. How do we keep, so how can Arts Ed New Jersey help? Keep shining a light on the successes. That's really important. Just keep emphasizing those successes, especially things, areas where you've seen a dramatic difference in how students are learning. We need more detail. Oh, so there was another thing that came up about needing more detail on the participation level of the data. So looking at the next census report and seeing how we can more strategically capture some real data around the participation levels at schools, or even training to complete the data the next time.
So what's the detail on participation levels that you mean?
So for example, within a school, the people who are reporting the information is basically, you know, when they answer the question, are they answering the question based on evidence, or are they just answering the question based on their perception? Are they looking at real numbers? So how do we move it more intentionally to be able to capture some of that information? And one of the examples that was used was that, for example, in one school, every student may be getting music, but maybe one kid gets it for 600 minutes based on how it's scheduled, and another kid gets it for 6,000 minutes a year. So where's the equity of access there? And then also at the high school level, striving towards the 60%, looking at preventing cases where students don't actually get to take an art form until they're a senior. So how do we address scheduling around those issues so students can have earlier access at the high school level? Because we know that we lose a lot of students who might have discovered another path for their life had they been exposed sooner, rather than later. And also providing the opportunity for them to have some sequencing so that they can lead to, mastery and AP and, all those higher level things that we really want them to do with the art form. And what can we do within our own organizations? We can tell our own stories. Don't rely on, Arts Ed New Jersey or the state. How do we shine a light on our own stories and just keep that out there in everybody's faces within our districts so that, they get on board with us. Also, it was suggested that we, looking at the dashboard, so several people in the room had gone into the dashboard and felt that, oh, how do I make a comparison? Like, how do we actually have the dashboard be able to see those comparison charts side by side? Like, how can you pull up your own data and compare it with a similar district? You have to go into each one individually. So how can we set it up so that it's, you can pull up the state, make a comparison for you to the state, a like district, or even school by school within a district. As a possibility, and how do you do all that right there on that dashboard? Let's see, am I getting? We also looked at the DOE and Arts Ed New Jersey partners identify schools where arts instruction is unavailable. What we talked about, because I believe it was stated that was 26 schools, that we need to identify the problems in those specific schools because they may all fit in a different bucket. And then after we identify what those buckets are, to create customized solutions for them. Some of them may need grants, some of them may need to partner with other schools in their area because maybe it's a specialized school that only has 50 students. And they can't really offer all those different subjects. So how do they partner with another school in their district perhaps? So it's really looking at identifying what those problems are, and creating those customized solutions. And then we also looked at number 7 around professional development for guidance counselors. And again, we thought that professional development should be made available to everyone who handles scheduling or facilitates that whole process, because it's not just the guidance counselor's decision ultimately. For those of us who work and operate at a school level, we know that that's not always guided by them. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Group 3 is Barbara Bashaw.
Hello, everyone. So Group 3 worked on pages 12 and 13 of the report, which is the recommendations for educators. And we focused around what would be solutions for teacher preparation and professional development, for administrator and arts administrator preparation and professional development, working with professional organizations for doing that, and promoting arts teachers and arts education. Our main themes we broke into small groups, and the main themes that were coming out of those groups in terms of solutions have to do with compiling and sharing resources, with developing partnerships, not only with organizations, but across districts or across counties, gathering inspiration from others, both in and out of the arts, in order to, professionally develop and promote, and also bringing information about the importance, the daily importance of the arts, the everyday importance of the arts to the public. So this idea of collaborative efforts being very present as a theme coming out of this group. Some of the specific recommendations coming out of the group, for example, are to create half-day PD sessions for arts-wide collaboration. So the idea that, if we could get educators together, collaborating together in the room, maybe a half-day PDs are one way of taking that step towards doing that. Also, the idea of the county-wide sharing of resources, for example, today hearing Sir Robinson speak, are there ways counties could be pooling their resources to bring in speakers or to bring in other resources that could be shared cross-county. I think a really important idea that came up was, how could we be sharing the creativity and the talents that all teachers already possess as human beings? The math teacher who plays guitar, for example, but also how do each of us, experience or celebrate creativity in our everyday lives? And that as a central human theme that we could make more present and more transparent. How do we make PD meaningful? So some ideas around that are also, can we be doing inter-district Skype sessions? Can we, we need to be doing research on best practices and really providing that research, publishing that research, getting that out there. The New Jersey Music Administrators Association is a very active organization where they dialogue constantly about these issues that we are doing here today. So they're a very important resource and a group that's sustaining this dialogue. So how do we connect in with them? How can they be connecting with all of the various organizations that we have here? Also, some other suggestions were, host an event like this just for administrators. With the goal of promoting creativity and the universal understanding that arts are core, and that we need public service statements that are going to do that very same thing. So getting that idea out into the public in a big way. I know when I'm talking with people out there, they have no idea. Even students in our undergraduates, arts students don't know that. Arts should be in every single school. Arts Ed Now could also be creating a student bill of arts rights. Really lovely, concrete idea that I think its time has come. And of course, we heard earlier in the day, but sharing those scheduling solutions did come up in this group as well. Again, developing lists of resources. And then in terms of arts integration, Arts Ed Now, this group was saying how they would like Arts Ed Now to help create resources for that, a platform for accessing arts integration experience, and involving the various arts organizations in doing so, in sustaining arts integration and in supporting collaboration between teaching artists, teachers, administrators, and the community at large. Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Yep. Now we have Group 4 is Danielle Bursk.
Thank you. I'm happy to report out on behalf of Group 4, an exceptionally brilliant group. We were looking at the topic of resources, which includes spending, funding, dedicated space, and use of technology. We also felt that time was an important resource to be considered. In looking at the recommendations we came up with the top 3 that we wanted to talk about more. The first we felt was the highest priority was further study of the model schools. Our top 3 ways that we felt we could or should unpack that and share best practices of the model schools includes providing more guidance to people at the school level, including the school boards, and getting the school boards to buy in and sign in on model school applications. Expanding the learning and sharing piece of the model schools program to include teacher-to-teacher and peer-to-peer mentoring, visiting, the sharing of schedules, but actual getting teachers from one school into another school to really see what's happening there. That was something my group felt really strongly about, was a big takeaway they'd like to see the model schools bringing to them as a service. And to make the model schools designation desirable and prestigious, we know it is, we would like to see it become something even the school board members know what that is and want to achieve it. We also felt that the second recommendation we wanted to talk more about was to continue to recommend that the New Jersey Schools Development Authority ensure that all new schools and school additions include the appropriate physical facilities to support instruction in the visual and performing arts. We had a lot of great ideas about that, so make sure you look at our Post-it notes. But our top 3 things we wanted to bring to the bigger group involving facilities were to ensure that arts specialists are on the teams that are planning new or expanded arts facilities, to have the Arts Ed NJ team serve as a clearinghouse for best practices and design information. All of the different art specialty groups have best practices for music classrooms or art classrooms, and to have one place an administrator could go to look at that as they're working on a design change would be really, really helpful. And potentially to see some advocacy to tie state funding for new school projects to properly outfitting and designing arts facilities. Lastly, we want to talk a little bit about recommending schools and districts exceed the current state averages for per pupil arts spending. We thought that the dashboard on the Arts Ed NJ website was awesome. We also talked about having an easy comparison tool so that you could show your superintendent, here's what we're doing, look what our school district next door is doing, would be helpful. Apparently they're a very competitive lot. To be able to really share out and market to parents and community and the Board of Education the ways that those tools could be used. To develop marketing materials for parents that show that all art forms make up the arts. So when a teacher is advocating and handing out Arts Ed Now materials and they're talking about the arts, a teacher doesn't automatically assume visual arts. To have something you can put in their hands that shows all of the disciplines that that includes. And PD came up quite a bit in our group as well, PD for arts educators on how to use and interpret the data. And this was something they talked about for quite a while in our group and really came down to some webinars, maybe some regional in-person ways or group PDs where teachers could learn how to interpret the data, learn how to share it, and use it how to use it to advocate for themselves and their programs. And those are the highlights of Group 4.
Wow. If that's the highlights, I can't wait to see the details, right? That's great. Excellent, excellent. Okay, Group 5 is Karen Pinzolo and Jackie. And we want to say special thanks to Jackie, who stepped in at the last minute when we had a scribe bail at the last minute. And Jackie raised her hand and jumped right in. So thank you, Jackie.
Okay, so group number 5, we talked about all the recommendations and focused on technology, national resources, communication between cultural organizations and teachers, social and emotional learning, and not either, or both. So you'll do that. So mostly we talked about communications between cultural organizations and teachers, and how do we reach out? Where are the connected points in the community where you have a very diverse group of people that you can reach out to? So we thought about an arts council and about sustainable Jersey teams. I mean, I know for an arts team, you need a teacher, you need a local official, you need a business person. So these are the kinds of people you want to have input from. So we felt that that the partnership should really increase their partnership with the Sustainable Jersey, and get some of their, on their website, you can go and look at each school and their documents that they got points for. So maybe there's some way to get that on, or a link to it on your website. And then we talked about social and emotional learning and how the arts could provide for that if they connected with the community. We talked about that we should look for diverse and non-traditional partners in the community, such as Teddy, the Trenton Dance Institute, created a partnership with their youth development organization, another nonprofit. And South Jersey Culture Alliance worked with Catholic Charities to work with Syrian refugees in the Cherry Hill area. So, and also social services have great evaluation components to their grants. So we have the extra benefit of being able to seriously evaluate our programs. And and we also wanted to emphasize that we wanted it to be very local and personal for the student, and touch on topics, either the environment around the school, or maybe the opioid crisis or suicide were two issues that really came up in our discussions. So, and then there was one more.
First of all, it was pretty discouraging to learn that the decline in engagement between schools and community arts organizations has been tracked here in this report since 2006, and that this is an area where, in the data that was collected, that we are seeing something that is actually going in the wrong direction. And that is of concern, and it was something that, I think for many of us, it was the first time we were really seeing this and grappling with this really what's a much larger discussion and problem, and is going to require some coming together on. And it really came down to this fundamental issue in the recommendations. It kind of goes through, this theme is through the different recommendations. Why should schools value arts programs being offered by cultural organizations? Right, yeah, so that was a big question. And though we don't have the answer to that, one of the things we thought about is that there's so many great exemplars of work being done through the Arts Integration Initiative, through our iSTEAM initiatives, through field trips that are connecting to the curriculum, and within many of our different cultural organizations, there are resources and there are great things happening in the schools. How do we, so we are recommending and thinking the next step would be, how do we collect those best practices and those exemplars and put them somewhere where they could not only live, for schools to be able to use as a resource to see, and districts as a resource to see, how do we do this? But what does that even mean? And we're the chorus. There's an education piece here that is on us, that we need to get out in front of leadership and district people and be able to guide them to a place where they can be looking at these examples. We thought then the question would be, well, how do we get there? And that perhaps this is something that I think, Bob, you even brought up. We could connect this to the Model School Action Suite, that somehow this is where we can begin this work of raising the awareness of the resource of cultural organizations, not just as something that is a field trip outside, but how does this connect back to the learning and to the standards and to the school strategies, strategic plan and goals.
very much. We got group 6 coming up. And while they're coming up, I do have a public service announcement. Somebody in group 3 left an iPhone in the room. And we have that phone. Where is the phone now? Do we have it here, or did we leave it? It's still in the room? Okay, so if no one claims it, you can run to that room and have a free iPhone as the souvenir. All right, all right, group 6.
All right, so we looked at arts integration, and I think one of the pieces of the census that we spent a lot of time around was the idea that 46% of the schools say they have arts integration and are doing that, yet only 3% are allowing for that planning time. And so that brought up a lot of questions and really kind of fueled our discussion. So I think there were 4 themes that came out of that.
One of which was just time in order to do this co-planning that's so crucial to the work.
The co-planning and the co-teaching, what does that look like? What does that mean? We spent a lot of time in the morning looking at that.
Training and for teachers, administrators, and folks in pre-service, allowing the creativity to develop.
And then the helping to, and this was said earlier, but empower those arts teachers to, be able to reach out and connect with their peers in their building. And so from that, we came up with 8, we came up with many more than 8 action steps, but we're gonna share kind of the synthesis of that now.
So one of them was making arts a part of the culture. So bringing arts up and center in the school, not hidden behind the cafetorium, but really integrated within the school areas.
We talked about being able to clearly articulate the importance of planning and make that valued. The planning time isn't happening, so how can we help teachers know how to plan and help administrators realize just how crucial that is to arts integration?
Making sure that we all have a common vocabulary, even within our group who would be arts-centric folks. We all didn't have the same definition of what arts integration is. What is arts enhancement even? So needing to unpack that across the board.
We talked about the importance of training both teachers, administrators, and particularly pre-service teachers, so that in the pre-service programs, that arts integration and these ideas and practices really start to come from the very beginning. Training them not only on how to plan, which we talked about, but the benefits of arts integration. And as with that training, that will help generate buy-in amongst the stakeholders so that arts integration can become more of a practice, accepted practice.
And when classroom teachers, arts teachers are not available, using teaching artists and connecting with community resources that are already existing.
We discussed using existing resources that are out there, but being able to have, maybe on the Arts Ed Now website, a clearinghouse that has videos of best practices, grant opportunities, and list those community resources so that schools who are interested know where to go.
In addition to those resources on Arts Ed Now, also having potential policies that schools can adopt that reflect arts integration practices, as well as putting in sample strategic plans from various school districts that implement arts integration currently.
And then finally, we came away with this idea that it is okay to start small. This is not going to happen overnight, so that's starting small, finding a coalition of the wielding within your building, and then having a plan and being able to move forward with that plan, but being open to adjust it as needed. If you know where you're going, you can enjoy that process of getting there.
Yes, and utilizing the user's guide for arts integration as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, all great suggestions. And one of the other things I like about it is there are a couple different organizations or initiatives going on. Dodge has a pretty significant arts integration work group that's going on right now. They're also working with Sustainable Jersey on the arts integration and arts education measures within the Sustainable Jersey for Schools aspect. And of course, we've got the great partnership with School Boards Association and John Henry with their iSTEAM program. I heard him mentioning they have some sample policies that are up there. So there are some things that we can do a better job of kind of collaborating on and sharing to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel. So a lot of it isn't just what can we do at the partnership or at ArtsEd New Jersey, but also what can we collectively learn and share from one another. Again, some people have solved some of these problems, and it's just a matter of making that information visible. So before we dismiss, I just want to reiterate the fact that this is just the beginning. As we come out of this work, we're going to take in all of the information. We're going to convene the steering committee for ArtsEd New Jersey, and we're also going to convene these groups in teleconference so that you can continue to further refine the ideas and help craft an action plan that we can then manage for the next several years to try to implement so that we can capture all the great thinking here and turn that into actions that we actually take. So before I dismiss you, I want to share one last video with you. We had the good fortune, because of our partners at the New Jersey State Council on the Arts and Art Pride New Jersey, put together a fabulous video that talks about arts education, the arc of arts education in our state, and kind of setting the stage for moving forward. So I'd like to close by sharing this video with you and then send you on your way. Hope you have a safe drive home. Thank you on behalf of the partnership, our board, all of the partners here at the summit for your time and contribution, your energy, and your brain power. Again, the solutions for advancing the arts in our state start in this room, but we now have to carry the work forward. So with that, we'll end with this video.
The arts and the power of the arts is probably something that I'm most passionate about. To see how the arts impacts children of all types. It's one of the only things that goes right into the heart of a person.
New Jersey is a national leader in arts education. Over the past 30 years, the arts have come to play a central role in our public schools, and the results have been dramatic. We've come a long way since 1987, when Governor Tom Kean created a task force to study arts literacy in the schools.
Greatest gift anybody gave me was to take me to great arts organizations, so I came, when I was young, to understand and appreciate the arts. What you learn, what you experience through the arts, elevates the human spirit in a way that nothing else does. They can take you out of what you are, and they can make you something better.
In 1996, New Jersey became one of the first states in the nation to establish core content curriculum standards for the visual and performing arts. These standards set the bar for all elementary school students to participate in music, dance, theater, and visual arts, and for every high school student to study an art form in depth.
It's incredible. All your insecurities, they're all gone when you get up on stage. And you're confident up there, and being able to do that in front of so many people, it allows you to look back and be like, I can do this. And so it has helped me greatly in a lot of things that I've done.
The state, with assistance from the New Jersey Arts Education Partnership, continues to gather data, measuring successes and shortfalls, and building the case for the arts in education. The arts boost confidence, expand communication and social skills, and nurture creativity and innovation, all skills essential for a productive 21st century professional workforce. In 2014, New Jersey became the first state in the union to include the arts on school performance reports, and a bill was introduced by Representative John Bramnick to give equal weight to students' grades in arts classes.
The bill simply says this: if you're a high school or middle school or elementary school in our state, and someone gets an A in art or they get an A in math or science, they are treated equally. The arts help, I think, the creative side of the brain. So if you're in a business that you don't think needs creativity, you're wrong. If you're a lawyer who thinks you don't need creativity, you're wrong. The artist side of the brain is an important side of the brain to cultivate.
After I picked up the trumpet, I just fell in love with it.
My arts education, it's added teamwork and building relationships with other people that I've never met before.
But there are still challenges. And so the New Jersey Arts Education Partnership has launched the Arts Ed Now campaign. Visit artsednow.org to join the movement and encourage quality, active arts education in your school district.
The values that we really believe in this country, the values of respecting each other and each other's points of view, of bringing economic groups together, of bringing racial groups together, all of that is done through the arts, and all of that is done in the arts. And the arts aren't just entertainment. You learn from the arts.
And you can find that and other great videos at the Arts Matters website. And a special shout out to Susan Wallner, who's in the dark in the corner there, and her team at PCK Media, who put that together and will be did all the video for us today. Again, thank you all for spending so many hours with us today, and have a safe trip home.